The Honda NC750 is often pigeonholed as just a boring commuter bike, so I thought I'd spend a couple of weeks on it to see if that label is deserved or if indeed there is actually more to it. There's no doubting its practicality, and the 750cc parallel twin motor puts out decent levels of power and torque. It's frugal, it's easy to ride, and when you combine this with the large storage space where the fuel tank would normally be and the DCT gearbox, it's easy to understand why many commuters do choose this bike. But if we move away from that daily grind commute into work, what has the NC750X got to offer?
So the tag boring commuter bike seems to be a label that this bike has gained. Whenever I get a review bike, I have a look online, have a look at some of the forums, not necessarily always the best place to go, and I'll talk to people as well and ask them for their first impressions of a bike, or if I mention a bike I'll get a gauge of how they react. And actually quite a lot of times when I've spoken about this bike, people go, a great commuter bike, and commuter bike, that keeps cropping up. And I don't know if that's just because Honda intended to make this a very good commuter bike, or commuters use it because it's just such a good practical bike. But that's what I'm doing this for. We're going to aim to find out. So what I'll do now I'm riding is briefly touch on the key components of this bike and give you a flavour of how I found it over the last couple of weeks, and we'll start with the motor. Now, as I said at the beginning, this 750cc parallel twin is essentially half of an engine that you'd normally find in the Honda Jazz car, and it is a very nice smooth engine. You've got a really nice soft throttle, there's a good feed of power in, it's not snatchy, it's very predictable, very confidence inspiring, which is a phrase I'm probably going to use a lot during this riding part. It puts out decent levels of power and torque, and I'll put those on the screen up here because I haven't committed those to memory. And this is why I think the tag boring, and we'll touch on that a little bit later on, isn't necessarily relevant to this bike, because it's got a decent level of performance. Okay, it's not the sort of bike that's going to rip your arms out of their sockets, but by the same token it will chunk along quite nicely and you can have a lot of fun with it. The combination of this power delivery along with the setup of the bike, the suspension and the brakes, all feed to actually what is a very enjoyable bike to ride. So the engine doesn't quite have that sort of mid-range pull. You need to wind the power on. It's not explosive, but by the same token that makes riding this very smooth and very easy. It's certainly got enough grunt for the road. This is the DCT model, and you'll know if you watch my videos I do like a DCT gearbox, and it's got the functionality that you expect. I've got several modes. I'm in sports mode at the moment. Quick stab of the select button will change that to standard mode, as you can see down here. You've also got rain mode and a user mode where you can set up the power and the engine braking and the traction control and all that sort of stuff that you want. So let's put this back into sport mode, all done on the fly very easily. And obviously you've got a manual automatic mode as well, so we're in auto or drive mode at the moment. What I can do is stab that AM button. I'm now in manual mode, and I can select the gears with the buttons on the bottom here. And obviously the DCT box makes a lot of sense if you are commuting on this bike. But the engine performance is good, it's plenty quick enough for the road. The bike has 17-inch cast wheels front and rear. This is running Metzeler Tourance tyres, which are a good all-purpose tyre, and it's got a very neutral handling, much like I reported when I did my CB1000R review. I find this bike very similar, very neutral It just does what you need it to do. There's no dramas. The only real negative, well, not a negative, if I'm going to knock it, it will be the suspension, and we'll talk about that next. But the overall handling of the bike is really good. You can push it into corners. You've got a lot of confidence, or I've got a lot of confidence in that front end. You can ride it a little bit harder and have a lot of fun on it. The suspension is non-adjustable, so it's set up for comfort, and it does provide that. It is a nice smooth ride, and if you're on the highway or the motorway or nice big A roads, nice smooth roads, it really is very comfortable indeed. Once you start to get onto more uneven surfaces or bits where there's lumps of tar like that across, or joins in the road, then you start to notice the basic nature of that suspension. It tends to push through that stroke quite quickly, and the front on bigger hits feels quite harsh. I don't think I've actually bottomed it out, but we're probably not too far away from it. But as standard suspension setups go, for a non-adjustable setup, I think they've hit a good middle ground. It's sporty enough to give you the confidence to push on a little bit, but it's also cosseted enough to be soft, and it's only when things get bumpy that it starts to get a little bit bouncy. The steering's positive, it's manoeuvrable, the seat height is low, the brakes are good, the seat is comfortable. You've got this big storage compartment here, which has been really helpful. A couple of times I've come out to do bits and pieces on it, and I thought, actually I need to go and grab a rucksack, and then I remember I go, no I don't, I can just chuck it in there. And of course it will take a full face crash helmet in there as well, so you can lock that away securely. So I say everything's pretty predictable in this. The handling, the braking, let's hit the brakes. Oh, nice strong brakes. It's a very comfortable place to be. This seat is broad and wide, nice and soft. I've spent periods on here where I've been on the bike for most of the day, and I've had no issues with comfort whatsoever. The riding position is good, bars are in a nice spot. It's just generally a really well set up bike. Of course it has an LCD display, and that's not surprising. That's a good way of keeping the costs down on a bike, but it is a very good display. It's very clear. I've got everything I need on there: fuel gauge, time, everything I need for my DCT box on the right. I've got trips, you know, speed, gear selector, everything you need. And actually it's very easy to read, even in, well, there's an example of that suspension in action with a bigger bump, but as I was saying, it's very easy to read, it's very clear. Sometimes TFT screens, which are very good, can get a little bit reflective. This isn't too bad at all. And on other Honda bikes that I've ridden, I think the CB650R, this LCD is reversed, so it's black background with white lettering. And actually I think this way round makes it much clearer. I was riding it earlier on today when we had bright sunshine, and even with bright sunshine shining on that clock, I could still read everything on there very easily. So there's quite a lot to be said for this type of LCD display. I was talking to another YouTube creator who did use the phrase, this bike is brilliant but boring, and I get where he's coming from. It is, if you take each individual part of this bike, it's very good. You put it all together and it becomes a brilliant motorcycle. I wouldn't necessarily say it's boring, it's more uninspiring, I think is the right way to say it. It's not a bike that you desire, it doesn't tug at your heartstrings. I suppose you could argue it's a little bit soulless. I think the best analogy that I could come up with is that it is the vanilla ice cream of motorcycles. It's not offensive, everybody's going to enjoy it. Some people may choose more exotic flavours, so whilst vanilla might not be everybody's favourite ice cream, most people are going to eat it and they'll enjoy it, and for some people vanilla is their favourite. So whilst I'm going through the bits and pieces, obviously it makes sense to talk about the screen. The screen is what it is, it's non-adjustable, but it's a decent height, it's got pretty good coverage. Me at 5'10", I found it to work pretty well. I don't get very much helmet noise. If it was a bit taller, it might thrust your head into that wind blast that's coming over the top of it. But for me, no problem. If you're a shorter rider, no problem at all. And again, talking about shorter riders, it's a very accessible bike. I'll put the weight on the screen for you. I've got 32-inch inside leg for an example, and I can very easily flat foot this with bent legs. So if you're a shorter rider, or maybe some of the smaller female riders, this is a really good option. In terms of styling, the bike's kind of futuristic but a little bit conservative, and maybe that's where this tag of boring comes from. I don't think it's a bad looking bike by any means, and the fit and finish from as you'd expect from Honda is very, very good. It's just a little bit unmemorable. So I will stand by that statement of it's brilliant but uninspiring. Is that such a bad thing? I've been riding it mostly in sports mode on the DCT. I've been riding this sort of stuff. I haven't really done loads of long motorway slogs, and I'm averaging in the mid 60s in terms of fuel consumption. So that's pretty damn good in these days where fuel prices are high. As you'd expect at a bike at this price, and I'll put the price on the screen, it's a little bit sparse in terms of extras. There's no heated grips, that's an optional extra. Some people might want to put hand guards on there. An adjustable screen would be nice, but I understand that a bike coming in at the price that it comes in, I can appreciate that you're going to be missing a couple of creature comforts. Cruise control obviously being one of those other ones. So if you were going to do some touring, that's going to be a bit of a miss potentially if you use it a lot. I must admit, I've got cruise control on my KTM and I use it occasionally, but I don't use it that much.
When it comes to summarising this bike, there's a lot of good things to say and there's not many negative things to say. It's certainly a brilliant bike to ride, and I suspect a brilliant bike to own, but it's not boring, it's just a little uninspiring. You can have great fun on this bike, but it's not the sort of bike that you desire or one that really tugs at your heartstrings. It's just a very accomplished, well-made, frugal, good performing bike that's very practical, and for that Honda can be commended. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you've got any questions, you know where to leave those in the comments section down below. If you haven't done before, don't forget to click like and subscribe, and all that leaves me to say is until next time, thanks for watching, take care, ride safe, and I'll see you soon. Bye.